Malik Carter stood frozen, his heart pounding. The whole class watched as his calculus teacher erased his answer, only to rewrite the exact same one and take credit. Some students, Mr. Whitmore sneered, shouldn't skip steps they don't understand. But Malik did understand better than anyone in the room. And that's exactly why they were trying to break him. What happens next? Let's go back to where this battle really began. Before we deep dive into this interesting story, subscribe to our channel and tell us where are you watching from. Share in the comments below. Malik Carter had never been more excited to step into a classroom. He adjusted the straps of his backpack and smoothed down the collar of his navy blue polo shirt, the one his mom said made him look like he had somewhere important to be. And today he did. Advanced calculus. Not just any class, but the top-tier one at Langston Hills High, tucked deep in a wealthy suburb, where the grass was always freshly mowed and the teacher's parking lot had more BMWs than Buicks. Getting into that class hadn't been easy. Malik had fought for a transfer out of his underfunded inner-city school, aced the qualifying exams, and endured the draining interviews where administrators always looked surprised when they heard his scores. Now here he was, walking into room 3B with a borrowed TI-89 calculator and a head full of dreams. The room went quiet the moment he walked in. Rows of white faces turned toward him. Eyes widened. Whispers dropped like feathers. Malik slowed his steps but didn't stop. His smile flickered for half a second, but he kept it on. "Morning," he said, taking the only empty seat in the third row. No one answered. At the front of the room stood a tall, angular man with a buzz cut and wire-rimmed glasses. Mr. Whitmore. He looked up from the attendance sheet, eyes scanning Malik like a barcode, not reading it, scanning for a price tag. "You must be Carter," he said, pronouncing it like a miscalculation. "Yes, sir. Malik Carter." Whitmore didn't smile. "Transfer student, right?" "Yes, sir." He nodded slowly, almost like he was filing that fact into a drawer labeled exceptions. Malik's hands rested flat on his desk. He could feel the tension vibrating through the room, but he didn't look left or right. His mother's words rang in his ears. "You ain't there to make friends, baby. You there to show 'em they ain't the only smart ones." The bell rang. "All right," Mr. Whitmore said. "Let's get started. I don't do introductions. We're not in kindergarten. This is Calculus AB, college level. I assume you all want to be engineers, doctors, rocket scientists. That means no slacking, no excuses, no hand-holding." His eyes hovered on Malik for a beat too long. "We'll see who belongs and who doesn't, by midterms." The class chuckled. Malik didn't. Mr. Whitmore turned to the whiteboard and began scribbling symbols. Derivatives, chain rule, limits. Malik's pen flew across his notebook. He knew this, not because he'd been taught in school, but because he'd taught himself. YouTube videos, old textbooks from the thrift store, late nights with energy drinks, and an itch to prove he was more than his zip code. "Let's warm up," Whitmore said. "Solve this." He pointed to a complex expression on the board, a mix of sine curves and logarithms. The room went still. Malik stared at it for 4 seconds. Then he raised his hand. Whitmore raised an eyebrow. "Yes. Carter? I can do it." Whitmore smirked. "You sure?" "Yes, sir." "Come on up." Malik stood, walked to the board. He felt 20 eyes drilling holes into his back. His hand didn't shake as he picked up the marker. In smooth strokes, he laid out the solution. Step by step, clean, elegant. He boxed the final answer and stepped aside. Silence. Then a scoff from the front row. Mr. Whitmore walked over, stared at the board. His jaw tightened. Malik waited. Whitmore took the eraser and wiped it all away. The entire board. Every number. Every symbol. Then he turned and said, "That's not the method I teach. Sit down." Malik's throat tightened. But the answer was right. "I didn't say it wasn't. I said that's not how we solve it here." Malik sat down, slowly. Whitmore turned back to the board, and using almost identical steps, rewrote Malik's exact solution, word for word, line for line. He boxed the same final answer, and said, "Now that's how it's done." The bell rang minutes later, and the class began to shuffle out. Malik sat still. A girl with red curls glanced at him and whispered to her friend, "He's not gonna last a week." Malik heard it, but he didn't flinch. He waited until the room was empty, then stood to leave. Whitmore was still erasing the board. "You've got potential," the teacher said without turning around. Malik paused. Then why'd you erase my work? Whitmore stopped moving. Because knowing the answer isn't the same as knowing the rules. Malik walked out. The hallway felt longer than before. His chest was tight, not from failure, but from clarity. He hadn't just entered a new school. He'd entered a new fight. And the rules weren't written in any textbook. On the very first day, Mr. Whitmore erases Malik's correct answer, then writes the same one himself. Malik Carter had always known numbers didn't lie. But people did. Teachers could lie. Systems could lie. And even the right answer could be erased, if it came from the wrong hand. The quiet hum of the ceiling fan in his kitchen barely masked the sound of Tasha Carter's wooden spoon clinking against the rim of a pot. Malik sat across from her, papers spread out like a battlefield, formulas, quiz prep sheets, practice problems. His face was tired, not physically, but that kind of mental exhaustion that settled deep in the chest where self-belief was supposed to live. I held my own, he muttered. Tasha didn't look up. That's not the same as winning, baby. It's just the first week. He already got a problem with me. Had me solve something on the board. I did it clean. He erased it, said it wasn't the right method, then turned around and did the exact same thing. Now she looked up. Her eyes narrowed, not in surprise but in recognition. Yeah, she said slowly. That's not new. That's old as time. That's a slap wearing a handshake. Malik didn't answer. His pen circled the same step on the worksheet again and again. Malik didn't come from money, but he came from brilliance. South Dallas wasn't known for producing Ivy Leaguers. It was known for overcrowded classrooms, peeling paint, and metal detectors that beeped more than they helped. But tucked inside those cinder block walls were teachers who fought like soldiers. Miss Sanderson was one of them. 8th grade algebra. She saw him finish a week's worth of problems in a lunch period, and whispered, "You're not regular, Malik." She was the one who pushed him toward the district's gifted transfer program. The one who helped him file applications. The one who told him you go there and show him what genius looked like in brown skin. And he had. That's how he landed at Langston Hills High, where diversity was printed in brochures but not seen in the advanced placement classrooms, where white students wore college sweatshirts before applying, and teachers like Mr. Whitmore guarded calculus like it was a private country club. Malik's first full week at Langston Hills was a slow choke. It started with quiet things. Mr. Whitmore only called on him after 3 others failed to answer. He'd pause longer at Malik's desk, scanning his work with a frown, like waiting for an error to surface. Sloppy notation, he said once, tapping Malik's paper with a red pen. But it's the same form you used yesterday. That was yesterday. Every correction felt deliberate. Every praise, non-existent. Still, Malik showed up, took notes, studied harder than he ever had. But slowly, a new fear crept in. Not that he wasn't smart enough, but that he could be discredited no matter how smart he was. One afternoon, Malik stayed after class to ask for clarification on an extra credit problem. Mr. Whitmore didn't look up from his grading. "You sure you're in the right place, Carter?" he said. Malik blinked. "Excuse me?" You know, sometimes students bite off more than they can chew. Maybe regular calculus would be a better fit. Malik's mouth went dry. "I qualified for this class. Scored in the 96th percentile. Whitmore finally looked up. Test scores don't measure mathematical maturity. By the second week, the whispers had begun. In the hallway, near the lockers, at lunch tables. Yeah, he's smart, but like, not real smart. I bet he memorizes stuff. He's gotta be cheating somehow. Did you see how fast he solved that derivative? He probably gets special help. You know, programs." The words weren't shouted, but they didn't need to be. Malik heard them, even when people thought he wasn't listening. One kid, Jason, blonde, varsity tennis, asked loud enough for everyone in homeroom to hear, "Yo, Malik, you got like a private tutor or something?" "No," Malik said flatly. Jason shrugged. "Damn, thought all the transfer kids got help." The teacher didn't say a word. Malik didn't answer again. But something in him hardened. On Friday, the desks were rearranged into rows. Pop quiz. 5 questions. Derivatives, chain rule, limits, and one implicit differentiation monster at the end. "You have 20 minutes, Mr. Whitmore announced. No calculators." Malik's heart sped up, but not out of panic. This was his zone. He thrived under timed pressure. He read through the questions once, then began scribbling in crisp, deliberate lines. 10 minutes in, he was done. He reviewed every step, cross-checked for algebra slips, and turned in his paper early. Mr. Whitmore raised an eyebrow. "All done?" Yes, sir. Whitmore took the paper without a word. Malik walked out feeling good. Maybe this would shut the rumors down. Monday. Whitmore walked in carrying a stack of quizzes. Grades were mixed, he said with a thin smile. Some of you are not where you need to be. He began returning papers row by row. Malik's landed face down. His fingers trembled slightly as he flipped it over. 57%. His heart dropped. Every answer was marked incorrect. Not with X's, but with vague red circles and sharp comments. Not rigorous. Unsupported jump. Wrong format. Method not taught in class. He stared at it in disbelief. His calculations were clean. He'd mirrored the exact format from the review guide. He looked up and caught Whitmore watching him, expressionless. Natalie Mathers had always been the teacher's favorite. Straight as SAT tour. Family of engineers. She sat in the row ahead and had received her quiz just before Malik. He leaned forward. "What'd you get?" he asked softly. She hesitated. 93. His eyebrows rose. "Can I see yours?" She looked around, then nodded. They compared answers. Step for step, her quiz was nearly identical to his. Same methods, same structure. Even the final boxed answers matched. Malik's breath caught. He looked at her. Natalie looked down. "I don't know what to say." "I do," Malik whispered. "He's making sure I fail." She nodded, almost imperceptibly. Then, in a hushed voice, she said, "You need to be careful." Malik didn't explode. He didn't file a complaint. Not yet. He walked up to Mr. Whitmore after class. "Sir, I was wondering if you could explain the grading on my quiz." Whitmore didn't look up. "It's all there in red." "But I checked. I followed the same methods as others." Whitmore finally met his eyes. "I don't grade on sameness. I grade on understanding. And your work lacked clarity." "What part wasn't clear?" Whitmore leaned back in his chair. "Look, Carter. Some students learn to mimic before they learn to understand. That might work for now, but it won't on the AP exam." Malik stood still, absorbing the blow. Whitmore added, "This is a college-level class. I can't slow it down for everyone." Everyone. Malik understood what everyone meant. That night, Malik went home and did something he'd never done before. He printed both quizzes, his and Natalie's, annotated every step, labeled them, matched answers side by side.
Then he opened a new document and began drafting a breakdown. Discrepancy in quiz grading, October 3rd.
He wasn't going to accuse yet. He was going to document. This wasn't just about a failing grade. It was about a pattern, a system, a man. 2 days later, Malik stopped by the computer lab during lunch. He didn't know what he was looking for. Maybe a second opinion, maybe just peace. Mr. Patel, the computer science teacher, was there. He liked Malik. Trusted his mind. "Hey," Malik said, "you ever seen grading like this before?" Patel scanned the two quizzes. "This doesn't make sense," he said, frowning. "These are nearly identical." Malik hesitated. Could it be bias? Patel didn't answer. But later that evening, he forwarded Malik an anonymous tip, a screenshot, a cached email Whitmore had accidentally left open in the school's shared staff portal, quickly deleted, but still caught by the browser's cache. It read, "The new transfer is precocious, but I question the integrity of his work. If his performance continues to outpace the class, I'll need admin guidance on how to address it without creating noise." Malik stared at the screen. That wasn't just suspicion. That was premeditation. It wasn't about his answers anymore. It was about making sure his success looked suspicious. And it was working. Because now he wasn't just the smart black kid. He was the kid under investigation for being too good. Malik's quiz gets returned with a failing grade, but the top student secretly shows him they had the same answers. And now Malik has proof Whitmore has been planning to discredit him all along. By mid-morning on Tuesday of the third week, Langston Hills High felt different to Malik. The halls echoed not with footsteps but with half-heard murmurs. Glances clipped away whenever he passed. The whisper campaign had begun. Not with shouts, not with official statements, but with shadows in classrooms and sideways comments in the cafeteria. Rumors that Malik was getting help from places he shouldn't. Rumors that spread so quietly that no one raised their hand to deny them. Malik sensed it first during calculus. Mr. Whitmore handed out a worksheet on tangent lines. Malik looked up at the board, fingers itching to solve. A girl 2 rows back asked Mr. Whitmore something about the formula. Whitmore responded with a glance in Malik's direction and said, Some students need extra help from places they shouldn't count on. The words hovered, loaded. Malik's heart beat harder. Was that about him? He returned to his seat. His chest felt tight. He stared at the worksheet, but couldn't force his pen to move. Other students passed back papers which showed high marks. Laughter. Comments like, "Nice job," or "You wrote it clean." Malik wondered if his own work would ever be called clean again without question. At lunch, he sat at a solo table near the edge of the cafeteria, his tray untouched. Across from him, two girls from his calculus class laughed over their phones. He tried to make it seem like he wasn't listening. Sometimes he wanted to get up and join. Sometimes he wanted to disappear. Either felt miserable. One of them said, loud enough so many could hear, "Did you see how fast he did that problem yesterday? There's no way that was just talent." The other nodded, probably tutors, or internet. Maybe copying, even. The first one shrugged. Still, if he's cheating, he shouldn't be here. Malik closed his eyes for a moment, breathing in cold air. It hurt more than he expected, not the words but the weight of the eyes that believed them. He remembered his mother's voice. "They'll try to twist your winds." But this was beyond twisting. It was eroding. His reputation, his place, his belonging. Back in class, Whitmore started class with a warm-up, an implicit differentiation problem. Malik raised his hand. Whitmore hesitated, almost paused, then nodded. Malik worked quickly, and again set his answer on the board. This time a student who always struggled earlier looked up. Surprised, Malik's solution seemed solid, polished, the kind that left little room for criticism. Whitmore looked. Then he looked again. He asked, "Did someone help you with this?" The class went silent. Malik's stomach dropped. There was a shifting in chairs. He said, "No, sir," his throat dry. Whitmore lingered, watching. A hint of suspicion in the teacher's eyes. Malik felt exposed, as if he had been caught even though he did nothing wrong. The class ended. Others packed books, chatted. Malik gathered his stuff. A boy, Daryl, basketball team, always noisy, walked past and leaned close. "You needed help?" Daryl said low, loud enough. People around heard. Malik said nothing. Daryl shrugged and moved on, tossing his backpack. As the day ended, Malik returned home, carrying more than his backpack. He carried the rumors like stones in his stomach. That night, he practiced problems as usual. His notebooks piled up, tangents, implicit differentiation, limits. He replayed Whitmore's comment in class, and wondered, was the teacher baiting him, testing him, trying to force him into a mistake? Malik's mother saw the dark under his eyes. "You okay?" she asked after dinner. "I'm fine," he said, but his voice broke. She didn't press. She never did. She knew. On Thursday morning, as Malik walked into his calculus class, Natalie Mathers was already there. She was standing by the door, waiting. She held something in her hand, a piece of paper that looked like a note. She met Malik's eyes, a flicker of resolve there. When Whitmore began class, Natalie raised her hand. Malik's heart nodded. Natalie said, "Sir, may I read something aloud?" Whitmore frowned, clearly irritated. Natalie held up the note and read it out. "To those who doubt someone else's work, may your own efforts be just as visible." The classroom shifted. Some students scuffed their feet, others looked confused. Whitmore's face reddened. The note wasn't anonymous. It was clearly from a student. Natalie folded it after reading and slid it into Malik's hand. Malik looked at the note. Words that accepted and defended, but didn't name. Words that made him think he wasn't alone. A subtle spark of hope. But Whitmore, his jaw tight, didn't respond to Natalie. He said thank you. "Now let's proceed." He wrote the next problem on the board. Malik wondered if this small resistance would change anything, or if it would just mark Natalie and him as trouble. The next day, conversations paused when Malik passed. Friends from public school in South Dallas had warned him this might happen. Isolation wasn't always loud. Sometimes it's consistent. During group work, he was assigned to an unfamiliar group. His new partners seemed reluctant, refusing eye contact, correcting unimportant details in his writing, interrupting whenever he tried to explain. Questions like "Where did you get that method?" or "Did you get help from a website?" came not as innocent curiosity, but as insinuation. One student, Marissa, said, "Oh, this isn't what we were shown in tutorial help." She spoke to everyone else, quietly. "I bet he Googles everything." Her voice was low, but sharp. Malik looked away. He felt small. In the hallway between classes, someone scrawled tutored in chalk by the calculus classroom door. The message faded in the morning sun. No signature, no context, but everyone saw it. Malik heard whispers again. I heard his mom works at a tutoring agency. He must be using some pro math site. Maybe his old school gave him help. The worst was that some of these whispers came from the students he looked up to, or thought he could trust. One night, Malik pulled out the acceptance letter from the gifted transfer program. He read its fine print, the criteria, the promises. He thought of South Dallas, the worn-out textbooks, the classrooms where 2 teachers sometimes covered for 4 classes, how he skipped a grade, how he solved problems on his own for hours. He asked himself, did he deserve this? Did he belong in this class? Did being good at math matter if people believed he was just faking it? He thought of his mother, waiting at home with her gentle eyes. He thought of Miss Sanderson, who believed. He thought of Uncle Ray, who said, let them see your work, but don't let them define your worth. But doubt gnawed. On Friday, Malik arrived at school. He unlocked his locker, heart thundering with nervous energy. Inside, taped across the front of the door, was a message, written in black marker. Stay in your lane. You're not one of us. No name, no signature. Malik froze. The words burned. And somewhere in silence, he realized the campaign had moved from whispers to war. Malik Carter's footsteps on the hardwood of the living room floor echoed more than usual when he came home. Books were stacked high on the coffee table. His mother, Tasha Carter, sat in the single armchair, reading glasses sliding down her nose as she reviewed paperwork, scholarship applications, school forms, progress reports. The lamp beside her cast long shadows. Evening light filtered through the blinds, painting stripes across the floor, as if the day itself were being barred out. He closed the door gently, removed his shoes, dragging slightly. He felt heavy. How was class today? Tasha asked without looking up. Malik placed his backpack next to the couch, unzipping it slowly. Same whispers, same looks. Mr. Whitmore questioned me in front of class again. Tasha raised her eyes. In what way? Malik sat on the edge of the couch. He asked if someone else helped me with the last problem on the board. Said I might not understand what I turned in. Her jaw set. Tasha folded her hands in her lap. She considered saying something soft, but she held back. There was something in the way Malik spoke, or didn't speak, that told her the hurt had settled in deeper than before. Listen, she said finally, voice steady. Baby, this what you're going through. It's nothing new. Just polished. In South Dallas, they might shout. Here they whisper. But the intent is the same. Malik stared at the floor. He felt drained. I keep thinking, maybe I was wrong to come here. Maybe they're right. Tasha stood and went over to him, kneeling beside the couch. She took his hands. They were warm, but trembled slightly. You're not wrong to be here, she said. You earned every spot, every credit. Miss Sanderson saw you. So did the transfer board. No one gave you anything you didn't work for. He looked up, eyes glistening. But every time I prove I can do this, they find a new way to say I can't. Even Natalie got the same answers. And she's praised. Tasha nodded. That hurts. It should hurt. But don't let that pain become silence. Don't let it become your cage. Malik swallowed. How do I fight? That doesn't sound like I'm complaining. Her mouth curved in a sad smile. Complaining is part of breathing. Fight means speaking when your voice shakes. It means making sure your evidence shows them who you are, and making them accountable. They sat in silence a moment. The hum of the refrigerator, the distant car passing, her steady breathing. A week later, Malik was in his room doing homework, when the phone rang. It was Miss Sanderson, his old algebra teacher from South Dallas. She didn't call often. He froze, then picked up. Malik, honey, she said, voice warm yet urgent. I've been hearing some things about what's happening at Langston Hills, about how they're treating you. I want you to hold on. He felt relief sort of ripple through him. Miss Sanderson, thank you. I try, but it's getting loud. I know. I see your work, and I believe you. But I need you to remember something you forgot. She paused. He could hear cars outside, traffic, kids playing, life moving on. What's that? You're more than how they rate you. More than red ink. More than rumors. You are a proof every time you stand up. She laughed softly. You remember that word, proof, she said. Proved doesn't mean perfect. He nodded, even though she couldn't see. Proved doesn't mean perfect. Exactly. And I'm telling you so you don't believe their lie. That your value depends on someone else's approval. After a quiet moment, she said, if you need anything, letters, recommendations, someone to speak up, don't hesitate. Malik hung up, holding the phone a little too long. Tasha knocked at his door soon after. Everything okay? She asked. He looked at her, then the sketches and notes pinned to his bulletin board. Old teacher praises, essays, test scores, feels like evidence, he thought. Yeah. Miss Sanderson called. Tasha moved behind him and looked at the board. She sees you. Malik exhaled. But even with that, he felt exposed. Because seeing alone didn't always change what others decided to believe. Every morning Malik woke with a knot in his stomach. Sleep came in fits. In class his mind wandered during lessons. Stopwatch ticking, problem after problem, but his confidence trembled in the margins. At lunch, the table in the cafeteria that once held his lunch tray and his resolve, now felt like a stage. He told himself not to look around, yet he did. Empty seats, sidelong glances. Sometimes he would rehearse what to say if someone asked if he cheated. Other times, he thought maybe silence was safer. But silence felt like conceding defeat. He began writing in a small notebook his mom gave him. Everything I did today, he titled the first page. Then, what was true, what was. He recorded each incident, the question in front of class, the overheard whisper, the correction he didn't deserve, the smiled praise someone else got for his work. It was ritual, a way to trace his own truth. But it made evenings harder. His dreams leapt and shifted. Sometimes he saw Mr. Whitmore circling red pens like vultures. Other times he saw his mother's proud face turning from pride to worry. At dinner, Tasha tried to lighten the night. She'd ask about his favorite moment, something from any class that made him feel good. One night he paused. I solved a tangent problem no one else could do in study hall. He forced a smile. That's your moment, she said. But it doesn't feel like one. They don't see it. They treat it like an accident. Tasha reached across, pushed his plate closer. They will see it. You let them. One Thursday afternoon, Malik lingered after calculus class, hoping to ask a question for extra credit help. Most students had left. Whitmore was packing things at his desk, stacking graded assignments. Malik's hands clasped together. Sir, may I ask about the last problem on the quiz? Whitmore paused, avoiding Malik's eyes. Which problem? The implicit differentiation one. Number 5. Whitmore's lips pressed together. He slid his chair back, sighed. Carter, your work was correct, algebraically. But certain conventions, certain rigor expected by the AP board were missing. Malik's throat tightened. But I used the exact form from the review packet. Whitmore looked at him then, and Malik thought for a moment, saw something flicker, surprise, regret, or maybe calculation how much truth he could admit without exposing himself. I see that now, Whitmore said quietly. Perhaps I was hasty. Malik's heart lifted briefly. Whitmore continued. I will change your grade to pass on that problem. But understand, Carter, expectations are different in this class. Not everyone is given the benefit of the doubt. Malik nodded, stunned. That part felt like a victory. But then Whitmore added, quietly, but loud enough that Malik heard. If this happens again, I'll have to follow through with policies. Policies meant paperwork. Policies meant labels. Tasha noticed the change. Malik came home lighter that day, but more tense. He was relieved, yes, but also unsteady. She asked about school. I thought maybe he saw something, Malik said. But then he warned me. She frowned. What kind of warning? Policies. If this happens again. He closed his eyes. It's as if they want me to slip up so they don't have to defend me. Later that night, Tasha pulled out her computer and found Langston Hill's Code of Conduct, teacher evaluation forms, grade appeal process. She researched hours into the early morning. She called Ms. Sanderson for advice. She took screenshots of Malik's quizzes, matched them with Natalie's, wrote drafts of letters. She typed, erased, retyped. For Malik, things were becoming less about crooked quizzes and more about corruption of opportunity. One morning, Malik walked into school to find a small envelope waiting for him in his locker. But it wasn't the threatening one. It was a printed note. Parent-teacher meeting, Wednesday 4. No other details. No signature. No copy ever went home with him. He'd shown it to a friend. They said they didn't get one. He asked Natalie. She said no. He asked Tasha at home. She didn't know. Malik's heart pounded. A meeting without his mother informed? A teacher initiating without family on board. It felt like being trapped inside someone else's agenda. He didn't show it to her that night. He watched her organize things around the kitchen: bills, dishes, scholarship applications. Her hands were busy, but not today. Malik sat across, waiting. When she asked about his day, he said fine. He licked his lips. He felt small. Tasha paused in chopping onions. Something wrong? Malik swallowed. Sir, Mr. Whitmore scheduled a parent-teacher meeting. Tasha stopped. Knife midair. When? Wednesday. After school. For Zaron. He paused, but his words caught in his throat. He didn't tell you. Tasha squared her shoulders. He didn't tell me? He shook his head. She set down the knife. The room felt colder. Shadows deeper. Malik lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling fan turning slowly. His mind raced. He wondered, why would Mr. Whitmore schedule a meeting that excludes his mother? What would Mr. Whitmore say, alone with an administrator standing nearby? What policies would he reveal, or twist? How much was being built behind closed doors? Because this meeting, this unannounced call, felt like a setup, and Malik knew setups were rarely kind. Mr. Whitmore schedules a private parent-teacher meeting, without informing Malik's mother. Morning light slanted through the blinds in room 3B, casting sharp lines across desks where calculators and folded notebooks lay ready. It was Monday, a day that looked much like the others, but everyone sensed something in the air. Students traded glances. Some smirked. Others furrowed brows. Malik Carter felt the weight of it, the moment he crossed the threshold, clutching his book bag tighter than usual. Mr. Whitmore stood at the front, markers clinking in his hand. He looked tired, serious, unusual. It felt like a pounding heart before a dive. Today we're having a pop quiz, he said. Silence. Malik's chest clenched. Pop quiz. Unannounced. Rumors about something like this had circled. Something about testing material not yet taught. Whitmore continued. This quiz will cover limits. Derivatives. Yes. Those you're familiar with. And additionally, implicit integration and differential equations, which we have not yet formally covered in class. Students' heads turned, murmurs. Some looked angry, some confused. Malik felt both. Inside, though, he had been preparing. Many nights of self-study, borrowings from online lectures, extra textbooks. He understood these ahead concepts, enough to know it was unfair to many classmates. Whitmore handed out the papers. 5 questions. 3 from what had been taught, 2 drawn from advanced topics. The last question was clearly not from any class lecture or homework. An implicit integration problem with a twist. It used notation slightly altered. Variables renamed, methods different from what the textbook showed. It was designed to test not just understanding, but how fast someone could adapt to unknown format. Malik saw the question. He inhaled. He recognized the underlying structure. He leaned over the paper, pen ready. Others around him furrowed brows, flipped through formula sheets in their heads. Some glanced at Malik's calm face. He did not allow doubt to show. 20 minutes passed like lead. Malik worked diligently. He paused only to double-check signs, the limits on integrals, the coefficients. The twisted question seemed unwieldy, but he unraveled it, working step by step. He boxed his final answer, his handwriting neat, his logic direct. He thought, this is it. When time's up, Whitmore collected the quizzes. Malik slid his paper in, heart pounding. He looked at Whitmore, who gave a curt nod. No expression. Nothing. The rest of the day stretched. Malik's mind replayed his steps. Did I miss something? Is the twist enough to trip me up? He thought of Natalie and the overnight note. He thought of his mother's warning. Speak when your voice shakes. This felt like speaking. Lunch came. Malik sat with his tray, poked at salad. He had no appetite. Across the table whispered comparisons.
It's on who fails that quiz.
Didn't even see that stuff taught. Their voices low, but clear to him. In class, Whitmore returned graded papers. Malik's turned face down, his hands stilled. When he flipped it, he saw 48%. A failing grade. Red ink. Comments. Method inappropriate. Notation unclear. used unapproved framework, lacked formal instruction. Malik stared at the page. He had used implicit integration and self-study, but application to that altered notation? He believed he had done it correctly. He had followed logic. The answer matched what he felt was right. But Whitmore considered it wrong for not matching his style. Natalie's paper was passed next to him. She got 91%. One question. The same twist, slightly altered, marked correct. Malik blinked. He compared, similar structure. Same steps. He wanted to ask Natalie quietly. She offered a subtle look of concern, but didn't speak until later. After class, Malik waited, breathing shallow. He approached Whitmore, his voice low. "Sir, I want to discuss my quiz." Whitmore closed the classroom door. Others had left. Flickers of footsteps. Malik felt alone in the room. Whitmore looked at him, his face tight, controlled. "What about it?" "I believe I solved question 5 correctly. I followed rules, my steps match what you teach. When you adapt to problems, the method may not be identical, but the result is aligned." Whitmore's eyebrows furrowed. "Carter, the test was designed to see who can adapt without prior instruction. That question was not in any of our lessons. I grade not just answers but alignment with class method and format. Yours diverged." Malik's throat burned. "But the content was maths. I know that. I studied that. Not everyone got the benefit of pre-studying, but that's not my mistake." Whitmore paused, measuring him, eyes scanning, mouth tightening. "You're being difficult, insistent." He paused. "Some students may feel entitled. It's not just about getting an answer. It's about proving mastery within the rules set for this class." Malik felt anger rising. Not loud, but sharp. "If the rules aren't in the lesson, how can we master them? If we are punished for knowing more, then what's the point of learning ahead?" Whitmore's lips thinned. He looked out the window. He turned back. "Your comments border on disrespect. This conversation is over." Malik's chest heaved. He felt something crack inside a belief he could reason this out. He felt lost. As Malik turned to leave, he heard a voice. "That's bullshit." It was Natalie, standing just inside the open door. She held Malik's graded paper. "What you did, your method, it's valid. I tried it. My teacher approved my answer." Whitmore looked startled. Natalie leveled a steady gaze at Malik. "He's being inconsistent. My question was structured the same. I wrote it the same. You gave me credit." Whitmore stiffened. "Natalie, this isn't some popularity contest." She didn't step back. "It's about fairness." Some students drifted closer. Some eyes turned hopeful. Some disgusted. For a moment, Malik saw cracks in the control. Whitmore cleared his throat. "We'll discuss this later." He nodded at Malik. "Leave your paper with me." Malik's hands felt numb. He left class. The hallway felt longer than normal. The fluorescent lights seemed harsher. The next day, Malik was called to the office. A note was waiting. Something about aggressive behavior in confrontation with a teacher. He looked at it, feeling disbelief. He thought, speaking up was aggressive, asking for fairness labeled as threatening. Tasha read over the note at home. Student exhibited aggressive behavior toward teacher. Called into question teacher's authority. Malik's eyes watered. He felt small, exposed. Not because he was wrong, but because standing up had become the thing punished. At school, others noticed. Whispers. "He got a write-up. That kid's in trouble. They won't let him off easy." Malik tried to hold his head high. He walked the halls, his books under his arm, but every glance felt like judgment. That night, Malik sat by the window, pen in hand, notebook in lap. He wrote, "I did the work wrong or they see me wrong." He replayed confrontation. Did his voice shake? Did he cross a line? Was asking fair check crossing a disrespect line? He heard his mother's warning again. Fight means speaking when your voice shakes. He also remembered Miss Sanderson's words. "You are proof every time you stand up." He felt both fear and a glimmer of power. The next day, Malik walks into class. Whitmore places a fresh quiz on every desk. But this quiz isn't pop. It's announced. And it's accompanied by a memo stamped with school letterhead. Notice, any further instances of refusing to follow class protocol or challenging teacher's authority will lead to disciplinary review. Malik stands frozen, the memo in Whitmore's hand. Whitmore looks at Malik. "This will test not just your math, Carter, but your respect." Malik's palms sweat. He knows this is more than a math test now. Malik confronts the teacher, and gets written up for aggressive behavior. Malik sat outside the principal's office before school one Wednesday morning. The linoleum floor felt cold under his sneakers. The hallway buzzed with lockers slamming and distant PA announcements. He clutched his folder, his notebook of grievances, his proof, the note from Natalie, the written-up document for aggressive behavior. His heart pounded with hope. Maybe this time someone at the top would see. Maybe this time someone would act. A secretary called his name. "Carter, Mr. Ellis will see you now." Malik rose. He walked through the dark wood door. Principal Julian Ellis stood behind his desk, tall, with soft lines in his face. His suit was pressed, tie neat. Books and framed certificates lined the shelves behind him. Framed photos of smiling students, prom nights, science fairs, none of Malik's. "Malik, come in," Principal Ellis said, gesturing to a chair. The room smelled of polished furniture and peppermint. He motioned to Malik's folder. "What's this?" Malik set the folder carefully on the desk. "Sir, I filed a formal complaint last week about unfair grading, biased behavior by Mr. Whitmore, and numerous incidents of microaggressions, whispers and intimidation." Ellis leaned back. He folded his hands. "I see. I have looked into your file." He paused. "You must understand," he said gently. "Mr. Whitmore has never had a complaint in 20 years. Not one." Malik's heart sank. He had expected resistance, but years without any complaint. It sounded false. Impossible. 20 years, he repeated, voice small. "Yes." Ellis nodded. "He's well respected. If there had been issues, those would have come up earlier." Malik opened his mouth to say more. Instead he closed it. He thought of Natalie's test, the memo, the note taped in his locker. He thought of every red mark that had nothing to do with correctness. He thought of Whitmore's private Facebook, which Natalie joked about having seen elements of. He felt something electric, betrayal not just from Whitmore but from the system. Ellis stood. He motioned at the chair. "You're a remarkable student. I recognize your achievements. But understand, teachers have academic freedom. They follow curriculum guidelines. They assign grades." His tone was firm, not cruel, but shielded. "I encourage you to keep working, and if anything else happens, come to me. I will review anything you bring." Malik nodded. But inside, doubt spread. Was this encouragement or deflection? Walking out of the office, the sunlight seemed stark. Whispers flickered behind locker doors. And in classrooms, Nadal statues at school didn't feel as welcoming when you thought someone was silencing you. Malik spent the rest of the day quieter than normal. He wrote in his notebook again during lunch. "He believes Mr. Whitmore's record, not my reality." The words felt true and bitter. That afternoon, in geometry, Malik overheard two classmates whispering as he passed. One said, "He went to the principal? That's bold. Probably gets shut down." The other nodded. "It's tough when every authority backs Whitmore." He kept his head down, but a small flame ignited in him, not just wanting to prove Whitmore wrong, but to force recognition from people who mistook his silence for weakness. That evening, Malik was organizing his notebooks when his phone buzzed. A message. "Hey, come by the library after school tomorrow. I found something." It was from Natalie. He texted back, "Okay." Next day he waited by the library doors. Natalie came in, holding her phone. She looked nervous but determined. She showed him a screenshot. It was from Mr. Whitmore's private Facebook account, something not visible on his public profile. The meme showed a cartoon character with exaggerated black features doing math, captioned, "When they talk about deriving but can't relate." It was racist, mocking, tasteless. Malik swung between rage and disbelief. He posted this. Natalie nodded. "I saw it accidentally. A friend tagged him. It was supposed to be private." Malik's insides twisted. This was more than bias. It was laughter at him, at people like him. Behind the curtain, when no students could see, he felt exposed all over again. If this leaks, what would people say? If Whitmore denies it, who would believe him? Malik decided to bring the meme to the principal. The next morning before school, he waited outside Ellis's office, heart hammering. He handed the screenshot along with a printed version, plus his documentation, complaints, quizzes, Natalie's test comparisons, the note from the locker, the memo about behavior. Ellis glanced at them, brows folding. "Malik," Ellis said, "thank you for showing me this." He tapped the picture. "It's concerning." He peered over glasses. But this is a private social media post. It's not necessarily directed at you. Context matters. Malik felt his throat tighten. He's my teacher. He speaks in class. He grades me. How I do goes through him. He has power over me. If he laughs like this privately, it affects what he does in class. Ellis's expression remained calm. I understand your feelings. But as it stands, I cannot take disciplinary action based solely on something from a personal account. There must be proof of classroom impact. Also, Mr. Whitmore denies making that post. He says the screenshot was altered. He says tagging could mislead or that someone else used his account. Malik stared, dumbstruck. Denial, deflection, silence from every authority, except safe words. Ellis sighed. I'll have to investigate. Malik nodded. He left, clutching his folder. But his hope felt frayed. That night Malik's sleep is restless. He sees the meme on screen, sees Whitmore's face in memory, hears his voice saying things not fully heard before. He replays every unjust grade, every whispered comment. He thinks of his mother, of Miss Sanderson, of Natalie. He thinks justice is not just about winning a fight, but shining a light. He writes in his journal, if they refuse to see reality, I'll bring it into daylight. His thoughts fill with what he could do. Media, school board, a lawyer, the district. He feels lonely, not because he's alone, but because so many voices remain buried, afraid. But he also feels something else, a steel-spined determination. The very next morning, Malik arrives at his locker before first bell. His phone vibrates with a notification. It's a text from an unknown number. It reads, everyone saw. Meme is out. Whitmore has asked for a meeting with all calculus parents. Board members will be there. Malik's heart stops, because the war is moving from whispers to the public stage. A white classmate quietly slips him a screenshot from Mr. Whitmore's private Facebook account, with a racist meme, and now the meme is out. Board members will be involved. Malik Carter didn't go home that evening. Not right away. Instead, he sat in the back corner of the school library, far from the windows, far from the whispers and the polished speeches about academic excellence. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered slightly, half-lit as if even they were undecided about staying on. His backpack lay open beside him, a mess of crumpled papers, highlighters, and graphing calculators, with low batteries. But the only thing he pulled out was a worn leather notebook, its cover faded, corners frayed. On the front, written in sharp, proof, the math that saved me. It was Uncle Ray's. Uncle Ray wasn't blood, but he was family. Raymond Ray Mathis was the kind of man who moved through life like it was a test no one gave him the answer key for. And he still got it right, more often than not. He'd been in prison for 10 years, on a drug charge that was more about the zip code than the weight, came out with nothing but a GED, a worn backpack and a reputation for solving everyone else's problems before his own. He worked night shifts at a packing plant and tutored kids in the neighborhood by day. Everyone knew him. Some dismissed him, but not Malik. When Malik was 10, Ray saw him sitting on the curb with a used algebra workbook in his lap, flipping through pages he couldn't even pronounce. You like puzzles, huh? Ray had asked. Malik had shrugged. I just like when things make sense. Ray sat down beside him, opened that book, and from then on, once a week, rain or shine, Malik would show up at Ray's one-bedroom apartment and learn the kind of math no one thought a South Dallas kid should know at that age. Limits, sequences, graph theory, proof logic. Ray didn't teach with grades or lectures. He taught with riddles, patterns, patience. Math, Ray once said, ain't numbers. It's truth. It don't lie, even when the world does. Malik lived by that. The leather-bound notebook was Ray's parting gift. When Malik got into Langston Hills, inside were scrawled formulas, theorems, sometimes just thoughts. Some pages were genius, others unreadable, but every one had heart. On one page, calculus is movement. Movement is life. Therefore, to learn calculus is to understand how to live better. On another, if you want to survive in a place built against you, learn the rules they won't teach you out loud. Malik flipped through the pages, then paused on a section titled, 4 variables. They never graph. Race, power, belonging, silence. He ran his fingers over the words. Ray had always known the fight ahead, and here Malik was, living it. In the days that followed, Malik showed up to school like clockwork, but something inside him had shifted. He wasn't angry, not exactly, But something in him had cooled, hardened, crystallized. He sat in Mr. Whitmore's class like stone, watching, observing. He didn't raise his hand, didn't speak unless called, but his eyes recorded everything. He started noticing small things. When a white student answered a question partially right, Whitmore praised the thought process. When Malik got it right but didn't match Whitmore's wording, incomplete methodology. The way the teacher always seemed to scan Malik's desk, just a second longer than anyone else's. The sudden disappearance of the group projects replaced with solo assignments once Malik started outperforming others. It was 1,000 tiny cuts. Invisible to most. Unmistakable to him. Outside class he heard the jokes, the whispers, the white classmates who now referred to him as Mr. MIT, not with awe but mockery. They said he was trying too hard, acting smarter than everyone. One of those kids who think they're special. What they never said, but always meant, was he didn't belong. At home, Tasha Carter had shifted into war mode. She wrote emails, first calm, then increasingly direct, to school administration. Most went unanswered, or were politely dismissed. She spoke at the kitchen table with passion, drafting timelines, listing names and dates. She kept receipts, digital copies, notes of phone calls. "You're not crazy," she told Malik nightly. "And you're not invisible. I see you. They see you too, baby. That's why they're scared." But the stress was showing. Tasha was working overtime to cover bills. The scholarship money helped, but not enough. The late nights of fighting for her son took their toll. Sometimes Malik would hear her crying softly in the kitchen, long after she thought he was asleep. Then came the counselor's meeting. Mr. Lewin, the school counselor, called Malik in. He spoke with a syrupy tone, fake friendly, forced calm. "Malik, I wanted to talk about your schedule." Malik sat, hands folded. "Why?" "Well," Lewin began, "given the ongoing conflict in Mr. Whitmore's class, we're considering moving you to a standard calculus course. It would relieve some pressure for everyone." Malik blinked. "You mean, drop me down?" Lewin raised his hands. "It's not about your ability. It's about environment. You've been under a lot of stress. There have been incidents, complaints. From who?" Lewin didn't answer. Malik stood slowly. "I'm not moving down." Lewin looked disappointed. "Think about it. You still have time to drop without penalty." "I'm not moving down," Malik repeated, louder now. "I earned that seat." That night, Malik started compiling everything. The altered test, the matching quizzes from Natalie, the Facebook meme, the emails ignored, the counselor meeting. He laid them out like a giant math problem. Variables, cause, effect, evidence, proof. He wasn't going to just complain. He was going to prove it. He reached out to a local community group, Students for Fair Education. He sent them a redacted version of his folder. They responded within hours. "Let's meet," the email said. "You're not the only one." When Malik met with the group, he wasn't prepared for what he found. 3 other students, 2 alumni, 1 current student, had stories, all Black or Latino. All had once been in Mr. Whitmore's class. One had transferred out after being accused of plagiarism, with no proof. Another had scored top marks in statewide math contests, but was mysteriously denied recommendation letters for college. The third? She'd filed a complaint and was advised to drop the class for her own good. Malik sat there shaking, not because he was surprised, but because he realized this wasn't about him. It was a pattern. He was just the latest proof point. He walked home that night feeling something new in his chest. Clarity. Calculus had never just been about equations. It was about movement, rate of change, control.
In Langston Hill's, math was power.
A gatekeeping tool. A way to measure who got to belong. But Malik had solved their equation, and he wasn't going away quietly. The next morning, Malik opened his locker and found a folded piece of paper. Inside, typed in clean, bold letters. "We're watching you. You won't win." No name. No handwriting. No threats of violence. But the message was clear. Malik stood frozen for a moment, staring at the words. Then he folded it, placed it in his pocket. He wasn't scared. He was done hiding. Because this wasn't about passing calculus anymore. It was about rewriting the formula. Malik moved through the calculus classroom one morning with quiet vigilance. The desks were arranged in the same rigid rows, the fluorescent lighting humming overhead. It was the day Mr. Whitmore announced the adoption of a new grading system. Something called Evalgrade AI, an algorithmic tool the school claimed would make grading more efficient and unbiased. Malik had wallets of evidence by now of how unbiased promises often carried weight only when heavy enough to crush those who believed them. The tool was introduced without warning. No parent-teacher meeting, no student forum. Whitmore stood before the class, a PowerPoint slide behind him, introducing Evalgrade AI for fair, fast, transparent grading. Malik felt something tighten inside his chest as Whitmore's voice echoed in the room. Some students looked relieved, others suspicious. Malik was somewhere in between, but nearer suspicion than relief. Evalgrade will assist me in grading your work, Whitmore explained. It will flag inconsistencies, reward methodical work, ensure fairness across the board. He paused. I trust it will benefit all of you equally. Malik watched him. The slide changed. Benchmarking with past classes, normalized standards, algorithmic oversight. A few hands raised with questions. Whitmore smiled. Yes, you'll get feedback from both the AI and me. If there's disagreement, we'll discuss it together. The room seemed quieter than usual. Anticipation mixed with unease. For the next quiz, Evalgrade AI was in full use. Students submitted their papers. Malik's answers were again correct. Clean, logical, following his own self-studied style when standard class methods didn't match his understanding. Natalie's answers were also pristine, in the class standard style. Later, when graded papers returned, something felt off. The AI comments on his paper included phrases he'd never seen on Natalie's. Presentation not aligned, methodological divergence flagged, likely external aid involved. The grade was again lower, his answers correct but marked as special case or non-standard deviation. Natalie's paper received a near-perfect mark, with praise, excellent adherence to format. Malik stared at the screen of his feedback portal. The AI tool was giving nearly identical feedback that Mr. Whitmore had been giving, embedded phrases masked as automated, non-standard approach, presentation issues, formatting, inconsistent. It seemed the AI was parroting Mr. Whitmore's preferences. He spoke to Natalie quietly in the hallway. Did the AI comment on your color usage of ink? He meant metaphorically. Did it comment on style or method? She nodded. Mine said very clear steps, good alignment with class examples. Malik's throat tightened. Mine said my steps were good too, but then flagged style issues. Things like variable choice, how I labeled graphs. Natalie looked wary. Could it be the algorithm was trained on previous Whitmore classes on his wording, so it learned his preferences? Maybe, Malik said. But if the AI is just echoing him, then it amplifies bias. After school that day, Malik lingered in the computer lab. Natalie was there. So was Daryl, the basketball player. Also Marissa, who consistently harassed him in group work, and a new voice, Roberto, a transfer student from East LA, who had experienced similar grading issues. They sat around a rough desk, laptops open. Roberto shared something. See this graph? It shows my grades before Evalgrade, and after. I had a 92 in teacher graded, now 78. Comments flagged me for non-standard notation, when mine was exactly what the teacher said was okay last year. Daryl said, same here. They keep saying that my reasoning is good, but method doesn't match class samples. It's like they want us to think only one way is right. Natalie added quietly, I don't always speak up because I'm afraid I'll be labeled as one of them. But I noticed my classmates of color are flagged more by the AI than the white students. They made a plan. Collect quizzes, compare results, screenshots of Evalgrade comments, note trends, document exact wording, dates, names. They uploaded everything to a shared folder, private. One evening, Malik sneaks into school after the last custodial rounds. He knows Whitmore often leaves his school account logged in on a computer in his locked classroom. The classroom is dark, but the door unlocked. His heart hammers. He slips in, sits at the teacher's computer. It's connected to the Evalgrade dashboard. He scrolls through settings. There is a configuration panel, labeled Grading Bias Adjustment, Custom Weighting. It's not meant to be publicly editable. The menu shows sliders. Standard deviation tolerance, method deviation penalty, presentation preference weight. Each slider has a value. Malik sees that for method deviation penalty, the slider is set unnaturally high. It means any student who deviates from standard class example suffers huge penalty, even if correct. His stomach drops. This is beyond passive bias. This is active manipulation. He copies screenshots. Unknowing, he barely makes a noise, then shuts down the computer, leaves. The next day in class, Malik's quiz returns. Same pattern, his correct solutions. But because his steps differed even slightly from Whitmore's chosen class examples, the AI flagged them, deducted many points. Natalie nods sympathy. Later, Malik shows the friends the screenshot of settings. They peer at it in the library. Roberto gasps. This is premeditated. Marissa whispers. This is evidence. This changes things. Daryl asks, why hide this? Natalie's voice trembles. Because if everyone sees what he's doing, he'll deny it, or change it, or claim the screenshot was fake. They know this is dangerous. They could be accused of hacking, or tampering, or worse, of lying. Malik walks through school like he's burdened with 1,000 invisible scars. Each day the AI chimes in, fomenting inconsistent, method divergence flagged, external aid suspected. On social media, some students share their own evil comments. Tension grows. Some white students laugh at the absurdity of certain AI flags. Yo, mine said my graph was too bold. But among students of color and transfer students, it feels like a consistent assault. Malik wakes up nights replaying test questions, thinking of ways he might shift his own method to match the class examples. Not because he believes that's best, but because it's survival. He begins to doubt some of his own instincts. He wonders whether he's ever thought for himself, or just trying to mirror expectations to avoid consequence. Natalie suggests reaching out to a local journalist who covers education justice. They draft an email, anonymized with evidence. They discuss uploading their folder to a cloud sharing service. But someone warns, if this leaks too early, we'll get in trouble. Malik debates telling his mother about the AI stuff. Tasha already knows he's fighting unfair grading. He shows her some of the evidence. She looks at the setting screenshot, her face clouding with both shock and vindication. This is serious, Malik, she says. We need a safe way to show this without risking more punishment. Malik nods. They plan to bring the collated evidence to the school board if need be. If the principal and superintendent won't act. Later that week, during a free period, Roberto sends Malik a message. You need to see this right now. Malik hurries to Roberto's computer in the empty math hallway. Roberto taps into a recently deleted folder on Mr. Whitmore's school computer, accessed earlier that day, under safe surveillance of cameras. The folder name Evaluation Malik Removal Plan. Tuck. Malik's breath catches in his throat. Because it appears someone planned for his removal, based on evaluation. He looks at the file. It's empty. Or it was erased. But the name alone is enough. Malik stares at the screen. The hallway seems too narrow. The silence too loud. One of them finds a deleted file on Mr. Whitmore's school computer. Evaluation Malik Removal Plan. Malik could feel the walls closing in. There was nowhere he hid that the whispers didn't follow. But nothing prepared him for what came next. It was mid-afternoon in the teacher's lounge, a place with padded chairs, a coffee machine that dripped too slowly, staff duty announcements, the low hum of a TV tuned to the local news. Mr. Whitmore was there, seated at the far table, alone except for his laptop. He seemed relaxed, letting guard drop. His tie loosened, glasses off. He was speaking loudly enough for someone to hear beyond the door, but not expecting that someone to record. A phone tucked into the sleeve of a backpack under a nearby table captured every word. This kid, Carter, Mr. Whitmore said, voice casual but sharp. His grammar kind of rough. I can't trust some of his writing. Always a correction. Probably his old school didn't stress structure. You can see it, he uses run-ons, weak punctuation. Maybe word choice doesn't match the rigor. He laughed, then leaned forward, speaking as if nobody important could overhear. It's not a crime to be smart and sloppy, but people judge sloppy more than smart. Especially when the person is, he let you know. Another teacher at the table, Mrs. Klein, nodded. Yes, but we've told him before he needs help there. Whitmore replied. Help is fine, but there's a difference between help and letting him think he can compete when he shadows over others by raw answer but lacks polish. Then he paused, tapping on his laptop, voice lowering. If only his work always looked like Natalie's, then he'd get less pushback. But he doesn't. Not yet. The phone shook slightly, as the student holding it swallowed, heart hammering. The recording ended when a teacher came through the door, and the student quietly slipped away with the phone. Breath shallow, hands trembling. That evening, under the glow of his bedroom lamp, Malik saw the alert. New video posted. Black Student Union page. His stomach dropped. He opened his phone. There it was. A shaky video. 45 seconds. Mr. Whitmore, unguarded. Mocking. Belittling. Grammar, intelligence, tone. Far from professional decorum. The video caption read, "Teacher reveals what he really thinks. Listen closely." Comments blew up fast. Why is he acting like rules don't apply? He always thinks structure is superiority.
That's disgusting.
Is this going to lead to anything real? Malik's heart pounded. He watched the video twice. His cheeks stung. But he also felt relief. Someone else had captured what he'd been feeling, what he'd been hearing surreptitiously in corners. Proof. Natalie texted him, "I saw it. I'm so sorry. Daryl, I told my mom. This is serious. Roberto, we need to use this." Within hours, the video spread. Shared on Instagram, TikTok, local community groups, shared by parents. People who didn't even know Malik saw it. People started tagging the school's official page. The school's phone lines lit up. Emails to the principal, calls to Whitmore. The Black Student Union at the school demanded an emergency meeting. Journalists called. Malik's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. At home, Tasha watched with him. Her eyes red. She didn't say much at first. She let Malik sit next to her, both of them watching the video again. Her hand rested on his shoulder. "This is what I meant," she said quietly. "Let them see." Malik swallowed. Relief and dread mingled. He believed this was a turning point, but he also feared what the backlash would mean. The next news was confusing. Someone posted an alternate version of the video. Shorter, cut in lines, some context removed. In the edited version, Whitmore's most controversial lines about grammar and structure were dropped. The tone sounded milder. Some comments defended Whitmore, saying, "Taken out of context. Harsh but maybe just tough love." Malik's stomach twisted. He realized the raw video was real, but people were trying to control the narrative. He got messages. "Wasn't that edited? Is that original voice?" His allies scrambled to find the full version. Natalie said she downloaded the uncut one just in case. Whitmore, in class next day, looked different. Hunched, quiet. He didn't greet students like usual. His voice was steady but softer. He didn't refer to Malik directly, but remarks had changed. There was tension in his eyes. Next morning, Malik saw the school's official press release email forwarded by a teacher. It came from Principal Ellis. "Langston Hills High acknowledges receipt of a video circulating among students and community. We are investigating. In the meantime, we ask all parties to refrain from speculation or disruption. All students are expected to conduct themselves in accordance with school policy." He read. No mention of apology. No condemnation of Mr. Whitmore. No recognition of the content in the video. It sounded neutral. Too neutral. Then Malik saw the second part. Under disciplinary actions, a line, "Malik Carter is being suspended indefinitely, pending review of insubordinate conduct." His heart crashed. What? How could that be? He hadn't done anything other than exist, and now he was punished. Malik's world shifted. Hallways seemed colder, classrooms more hostile. The video had put him in spotlight but also made him target. Some students offered quiet support nods, note passes, whispered, "I saw it." Others stared. Some turned their backs. The teachers avoided him or watched him with sharp caution. They didn't smile. They didn't speak unless necessary. He felt betrayed, not just by Mr. Whitmore but by the system, by administration, by silence. At night he lay in bed, staring at the ceiling fan. Sleep wouldn't come. He thought, "I'm punished for being hurt, for speaking truth. No, for it being spoken without his approval." He thought, "They will say I provoked. They will say I was disruptive. They will say I deserved consequence." Meanwhile, his allies banded together. Natalie printed copies of the unedited video. Roberto collected timestamps. Students in the Black Student Union planned meetings. Tasha spoke out at town hall-style parent meeting, her voice steady and loud. "You cannot silence us with discipline." Miss Sanderson reached out through a local news station. She offered to confirm Malik's long history of excellence, his character. Malik watched them. He felt something fierce inside, anger, vindication, but also fear, because now his future recommendations, college scholarship, were on the line. On the morning after his suspension is announced, Malik walks into the kitchen. His mother is watching the news, local channel, the top story. Langston Hills High School, video scandal at calculus class, a photo of Mr. Whitmore. Next to it, allegations of racial bias under investigation. Another smaller headline, students suspended after viral video. Malik's phone rings. It's an unknown number. Caller ID, local district attorney. Mr. Carter? The voice asks. I'm calling about a complaint we received. About teacher misconduct. Malik hangs up, heart racing. Because this is more than school drama now. The school issues a press release, but it doesn't condemn Mr. Whitmore. It suspends Malik instead. The morning felt electric. Malik woke before his alarm, phone buzzing even in the dim pre-sunlight. Notifications flooded in, mentions, retweets, tags. A fragment of video here, a screenshot there, his name in bold headlines, hashtags Dine Justice for Malik. Bias in class, Langston Hills exposed. The school video had set something in motion, and now social media was the courtroom where everything was being tried. Opinions cast, reputations weighed. He sat at the kitchen table. Tasha was already there, scrolling through her phone. She didn't look up. Look, he said, pushing his phone forward. She leaned in. The screen showed text messages, public posts, DMs, frantic. A parent had posted the unedited video with a plea. Does the school care more about its image than its students? Another, my kid was in that class. Whitmore gave them different tests than he gives me. Someone else, not just grammar, it's pattern, denial, cover-up. At home, the discussions weren't quiet. Tasha spoke with Malik about what it meant for his future. Recommendations, college applications, scholarships. Words like character reference and faculty opinion swirled between them. By noon, the tone had shifted. Local media picked it up. An education blog published an essay comparing Malik's story to national patterns of academic discrimination. A civil rights organization posted a form for people to report similar bias in their schools. Malik's phone rang. It was a lawyer. A calm voice, professional. Mr. Carter, I'm calling from the Johnson & Fields Civil Rights Collective. We've seen what's happening. We believe you may have a case. If you like, we can represent you. He froze. A legal voice meant consequence. He glanced at Tasha. Her eyes widened. She nodded. She always had his back. But this was bigger than both of them. They arranged a meeting. The lawyer asked for all documents, all emails, all quizzes, the screenshot of the meme, video, press release. Every bit of evidence. Malik felt both exposure and validation. Everything he had saved in hidden folders now carried purpose. Still, there was cost. Teachers spoke in hushed tones in hallways when Malik passed. Some students avoided him. Some parents whispered in PTA chats. Is Malik being self-important? Maybe he overreacted. At school, when he walked into calculus class, Natalie waved him in. Roberto, Daryl, others stared. The tension was physical. Whitmore stood at the front. When Malik entered, Whitmore paused. A small narrowed look. It passed. Then Whitmore said, since the media attention, I expect decorum in my class. Mistakes will be marked. Behaviors will be noted. The room was more stifled than usual. Malik sat back straight, eyes forward. He felt watched, monitored. Pitied or hated, he couldn't tell. Either way, the social media courtroom had become his life. On Twitter threads, people debated, how do we know this edited version isn't manipulated? Students deserve equity, not perfection. Is discipline appropriate when someone exposes wrongdoing? Do students always respect authority? Should they? Some tweets defended Whitmore. Not everything is racism. Grammar matters. Students need standards. Others defended Malik. Bullying in teacher form. When authority abuses, it must be challenged. The divide was sharp. Parents in the school district attended Zoom calls. Some demanded Whitmore's removal. Others called for Malik to be disciplined for defaming a teacher. Tasha sat through one virtual town hall meeting. She spoke with voice cracking but firm. You cannot punish a child for telling truth. You cannot silence someone who everyone saw and heard. In between social media chaos, Malik juggled schoolwork, homework, calculus problems, tests, programming projects. But each grade now felt like evidence, not just of his ability, but of his innocence. Every comment from Whitmore, every AI-graded assignment, every parent-teacher form, meant more now. College counselors refused to write recommendation letters without speaking to Whitmore. Malik's deterioration in class participation, self-protection, looked like disinterest. Grades slipped slightly, not because he didn't know the material, but because he was second-guessing himself, missing class time for meetings, staying home when anxiety hit. He had to make a choice. Stay silent. Protect what little stable ground remained. Or use every tool lawyers, media allies to fight. One afternoon, Malik received an email with attachments, not from a school address. It was from a parents group that had been collecting evidence. There were screenshots of materials from the admissions department of a major university, one Malik had long hoped to apply to. The screenshots showed internal comments among admissions officers. Not sure how to evaluate this student with this controversy. Whitmore's memo is still pending. If press gets worse, could hurt school's standing. Candidate seems brave or troublesome. Malik felt dizzy. His application was now under informal review, not just for his grades, but for his character as defined by others. His future felt hostage to the rumors, the media, the biased evaluation. On the evening that parents, community members, media, and Malik's lawyer gathered in a crowded school board meeting, Principal Ellis and Whitmore sat side by side. Ellis read from statements. Whitmore said little. Malik's lawyer spoke last. Evidence, allegations, corrections, statements from students, all compiled, documented. People cried, some in support, some in opposition. Cameras flashed. Malik stood silent, but inside he felt every eye, every word. His voice shook when he finally spoke. I came to this school to learn. I never thought learning would include proving my humanity. That night, Malik's phone buzzes again. It's an email from a cold address. The subject line, admissions office, request for clarification. He opens it with trembling fingers. It's from the major university he's applied to, the one whose admissions materials were leaked. The email reads, Dear Mr. Malik Carter, we have received recent reports regarding allegations surrounding your high school coursework and disciplinary status. Before completing our review, we ask that you provide a statement addressing the controversy. Malik stares at the screen. A mix of fear and resolve washes through him. His future could hinge on what he says next. A major university admissions officer reaches out, asking about the controversy. The school board meeting was packed. Fluorescent lights reflected off polished floors. Folding chairs lined the multi-purpose room, and the air was thick with tension. Murmurs and camera phones held high. Parents, teachers, community activists, students, many of them children of color, filed in. The Black Student Union led most of them. Malik sat in the second row, Natalie to his left, Roberto to his right, Marissa surprisingly present too, though silent. Tasha Carter stood behind the podium, dressed in a modest blazer, her hair pulled back tight, eyes tired from sleepless nights, but shoulders squared. She looked across the room, scanning faces, not seeing just audience, but witnesses. She took a breath. The microphone squeaked slightly. Good evening, she said, her voice calm, but firm. My name is Tasha Carter. I am the mother of Malik Carter, a student in the advanced calculus class at Langston Hills High School. She paused, enough time for the room to stiffen. I did not come here tonight to ask for your pity. I came to ask for your justice. Tasha told them what Malik had endured. The quizzes, the AI grading, Whitmore's private jokes, the meme, the alteration of questions, the removal plan file, the suspension, every moment laid out like evidence in a ledger. She held up his memes, printed emails, misplaced grades, screenshots of AI feedback, and the notebook full of notes he kept at home. We have lived this reality, she said, eyes scanning each face in the room. Not as allegation, but as a truth that is harming my son's education, his dignity, his future. She recounted the moment she saw the video. Her shame, her anger, her pride that her son had finally been heard. She told them how media attention brought not only safety, but backlash, character assassins calling him ungrateful, others saying boldness isn't what colleges want. But she reminded everyone that character is what colleges should want. The speech you will hear from me now, she said, is not for endorsement, it is for exposure. Because what is unseen cannot be healed. She turned then to the school administration. 20 years without a complaint is a story of silence, not of perfection, she said. When a system demands conformity over justice, it rewards complicity. Her voice rose, hands gripping the sides of the podium. Admin may claim they believe Malik. They may promise investigations. But allow me to ask, how many other students suffered in silence? How many were pressured to drop the class, or moved out because they didn't sound or write, or walk or kneel the way the class expected? She paused. The room leaned. Some nodded. Others closed mouths tight. Tasha described teachers who call certain students precocious in public, but sussed in private. AI tools that reward conformity, not truth, grading systems that punish difference. She spoke about the emotional cost. The nights Malik couldn't sleep because he feared not meeting invisible standards. The isolation when peers began avoiding him. The humiliation of being suspended when he only asked for fairness. My son is not a problem to be managed, Tasha said, her voice deeper now. He is proof of something beautiful. Proof that excellence doesn't need permission. Proof that difference can be strength. She addressed parents in the room. You send your children to this school, trusting that they will be taught not just content, but dignity. That someone will stand for them when others dismiss their worth. If you believe in your children, you must believe in his. Turning to teachers. You are entrusted with power. You can build or break. You can teach math, or teach shame. You can see a student's mind, or see only the mess that doesn't match your methods. To the administration. You can choose policies that hide harm, or you can choose transparency. You can shield reputations, or defend a child's future. When she finished, the room erupted, not in applause but in a charged silence. Then handshakes, tears, hugs, cameras flashed. Someone videoed her final words. Someone else streamed it live. A hashtag appeared on phones. Tasha speaks. Within minutes, clips of her speech were online. One clip. Excellence doesn't need permission. Shared on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Another 20 years without complaint is silence. People reposted. Parent groups shared. Influencers weighed in. Local news ran segments. Mother's powerful plea in school bias case. It spread farther than Malik had ever had attention before. Natalie, watching in the audience, whispered, "This is going to change something." Roberto, looking shaken, said, "They can't ignore this." Tasha returned to her seat. Malik's face wet with something. Pain, pride, relief. The twist came when board member C, a woman Malik rarely saw, stood to speak. She praised Tasha's speech, but then made a startling admission. "While I stand with you," she said, voice firm, "I have to tell the truth. Many of us on the board were not aware of the depth of this. We thought this was a miscommunication. We thought Malik was a difficult student being defended in public. We didn't know until this speech how much was hidden, how much proof there was, and for many of us it shifts everything." She paused. "I will be requesting immediate review, not just of Whitmore's actions, but of the systemic use of AI tools, grading oversight, and teacher evaluation. I want transparency, public reporting, and I will ask that Mr. Whitmore be suspended while this is investigated." Murmurs rose. Some gasps. The room felt electric, like air before storm. After the meeting outside, under darkening sky, Malik and Tasha leaned against the brick wall of the school. Hundreds of people had already shared the speech video. Some comments were hopeful, others hateful, but the moment between them was still. Tasha turned to Malik. "You see, hearts change when they hear the truth." Malik nodded. "I was terrified you'd be turned away. But you weren't." She placed her hand on his shoulder. "They can't walk back what they saw." He asked quietly, "Do you think college still sees me differently now?" She looked up at him, eyes fierce. "If they do, let them. I know you. Everyone who matters knows you." Despite the impact, nothing official had changed yet. No apology from Whitmore. No immediate revocation of his suspension. No public apology from the school. Only promises of investigation. The same policies remained in place. The AI tool still in use. The grading still skewed. Many parents spoke up, but others defended Whitmore. Standards matter. This is how school should be. Malik felt the cost. The fatigue. The nightmares. The push for belonging now had a cost. Friends lost. Teachers watching. Future decisions pending on things out of his control. That night, Malik's phone buzzed. It was an email with an attachment marked urgent. Subject line: Board decision on Whitmore case. As Malik opened the attachment in his dim room, he saw the board's vote tally. Out of 5 members, 2 voted for Whitmore's immediate suspension. The rest voted to keep him teaching pending internal review. The decision had narrowly favored continuation. The statement read, "Until all evidence is fully evaluated, Mr. Whitmore will remain in his position. Malik Carter's suspension remains in effect." Malik stared at the screen. His throat went dry. His heart pounded. Because tonight, after everything, the school turned away from justice. Despite Tasha's speech going viral, the board votes narrowly to keep Mr. Whitmore in his position, while Malik's suspension remains. The auditorium was silent, except for the hum of projectors and the soft rustle of programs. The State Math Olympiad finals had drawn thousands of viewers, spectators, families, coaches, students, streamed live. Malik stood on stage among the finalists. White, brown, Asian, all wearing blazers and dress shoes. The lights felt too warm. The applause felt too loud. He took a deep breath, recalling Uncle Ray's notebook in his backpack. Pages of proofs, riddles, and the variable dance of XY, change, rate, belonging. When the head judge stepped forward, the crowd quieted even more. Judges' faces hidden in semi-darkness, spotlights on the whiteboard behind them. 10 finalists were called forward. Each had done well up to this point. Malik knew he was among the best, but so were they. The weight of expectation pressed against his chest. The final question appeared on the big screen. Let fex x0 xln 1 full tkt dtf x by in dd. Prove or disprove that for all k1, the derivative f fex satisfies a bound of the form 1m f x1 f fex x d d d d d, where gkx is a piecewise defined continuous function based on kk, and is a constant depending only on kk. Gasps echoed. Some finalists exchanged glances. Malik's mouth went dry. He recognized the core. It was a modified version of the problem Uncle Ray once taught him, when he was 10, about integrating logarithmic functions and comparing their growth rates. Back then, Ray said, "You see how ln 1 Paul CDOK changes when k increases. Never let someone tell you that's beyond you." But here, the Olympiad had wrapped that old problem in heavy new jackets. Piecewise definitions, bounds, formal constants. Time began. 10 finalists scribbled furiously. Malik's pen moved. He visualized Ray's old notebook entries. How he and Ray once sat on a front stoop, chalk on sidewalk, drawing curves of ln, watching how integrals climb, how growth can hide in small zones. Some students paused, counting terms, doubting definitions. Malik saw one girl slam her hand down. Disgust, frustration. Another boy leaned over to check formula sheets. Malik liked to think, struggle is the same for everyone here. But he knew something else. Struggle often gets punished more harshly when you are the outsider. He wrote the derivative, x bias, ln de 1 x bias, x bias, x bias, x bias, ln de 1 x bias, x bias, and then expanded its behavior as x. He mapped d1 x bias by recalling Ray's logic, splitting the integral into segments, comparing dominant terms, bounding the tail, step by step, carefully. He boxed key inequalities. He referenced known expansions. He defined M in terms of K. He drew from everything he'd self-studied online lectures, Ray's handouts, late nights of work. He didn't just solve, he connected. As Malik worked, he noticed something odd. The version on screen had an extra phrase, with continuity at the boundary of piecewise intervals defined by x bias, x bias. That phrase had no bearing mathematically, or so he remembered from Ray. But it was a trap. Many finalists wasted precious minutes trying to force continuity in a trivial boundary where the limit naturally gave continuity. They redefined d1 x bias awkwardly to satisfy that, instead of noticing the definitions already ensured it in limit. Malik smiled inwardly. Ray had once warned, examiners love to bury simple truth under formal noise. So Malik ignored that trap phrase. He focused on bounding thrive to extracting zeo x clearly, showing that the continuity requirement holds automatically by limit, rather than tampering. He wrote his steps with precision. His arguments were clear but not textbook perfect, in terms of matching the official style, because he used Ray's metaphorical style, curves, limit comparisons, bounding with known functions like xk1, and ln, 1 xk x kepsilon, 1 xk x kepsilon. The final 10 minutes were torture. Malik checked everything twice. He reviewed each segment. He boxed the final inequality. 1x squad 20. 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 For his chosen die, and constructed via piecewise parts based on whether x 1 by, and sky 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 1 by. The limit transitions matched, continuity at boundaries were smooth. Everything followed. He wrote his name, rolled up his sleeves, prepared to hand it in. Once time was called, finalists left their papers. Malik stepped off stage, shoulders heavy but heart pounding. Natalie was in the front row, standing, applauding. Daryl, Roberto. Others in the audience stood too. Malik caught his mother's face in the crowd. Pride, fear, love. The judges gathered afterward. Announcement time. The head judge took the microphone. After thorough evaluation, the result is unanimous. Every finalist except one struggled with the continuity boundary period. Only one entrant produced a complete proof satisfying the inequality with properly defined Ka, X, G, Ka. That entrant is Malik Carter. Applause erupted. Malik's throat closed. He stood, shook hands, accepted cheers. Cameras flashed. The live stream caught him stepping forward, eyes blurry, trembling but upright. Backstage, Malik's knees shook. Natalie embraced him. Roberto clapped backs. Tasha cried quietly. Malik smelled sweat and antiseptic. Reporters asked questions, how he approached the boundary conditions, what Ray taught him. He answered, voice cracked but steady. I remembered something from when I was 10. On phones, people posted video clips. He solved the final question no one could touch. Malik's proof, beautiful, clear, without bending. DMs lit up. You did it. That was your moment. He entered the green room, dried off with a towel someone gave him. His heart hammered. He realized this moment would be replayed, posted, quoted. Some would believe. Some would doubt. Though he had won, the glare of visibility dragged behind him. Already, messages floated. From parents. How did the other finalists not see the boundary trap? From teachers. Does he deserve the win if he used that trick? From opponents. Maybe he memorized Ray's work. Even on social media, some questioned authenticity. Maybe the problem was plagiarized. Did he get inside help? How do we know his solution wasn't coached overnight? Malik's phone buzzed with DMs. Some supportive, some condemning. He felt elated. Also vulnerable. In the green room, Malik met the Scholarship Foundation chair, who had been in audience quiet, observant. She approached him. You handled that beautifully, she said. Your proof was elegant. Your boundary work, very smart. Malik nodded, still catching his breath. She leaned in. We believe in voters seeing not just math but character. This demonstration of clarity under pressure, that's what we look for. Malik exhaled. That voice of recognition felt rare, important. As Malik walked off stage under bright lights and cameras, his phone vibrated with one final notification. It was an email from the chair of a major scholarship foundation. The subject line, immediate meeting request, post-Olympiad scholarship chair. The body read, Dear Malcolm, sorry Malik, your performance tonight has drawn attention beyond mathematics. We would like to schedule an urgent meeting tomorrow morning. There are funders who wish to back students not only for excellence, but resilience under injustice. Please bring your documentation, the proof, your notebook, evidence of your struggles. This is time sensitive. Malik stared at the screen, adrenaline cold in his veins. Because this was more than recognition. It was opportunity. But with all that had happened, he knew opportunities came with risk. A scholarship foundation chair requests an urgent meeting with Malik. Immediately after the event, Malik sat in the lawyer's office, folders piled high on the desk before him. His allies, Natalie, Roberto, Daryl were there, each clutching their own evidence. Screenshots, test copies, recorded AI feedback, the removal plan file screenshot. Tasha stood nearby, arms crossed, face set. The room's blinds were pulled tight. Late afternoon sun slanted in dusty gold. Outside, traffic hummed. Inside, every breath felt like a countdown. The civil rights attorney, Ms. Ahmed, spoke in measured tones. We've submitted a request for the district to open a formal investigation under Title VI, plus a complaint with the state's Department of Education. Your evidence is strong. Pattern, consistency, algorithm manipulation, private social media posts. We asked for Mr. Whitmore to be put on administrative leave immediately during the investigation. Malik's throat tightened. He looked at his mother. She nodded. Quiet. He believed this was where change could begin. The school district responded. Not with statements or press releases at first, but with quiet letters, legal filings. Behind closed-door meetings, Whitmore was asked to meet with HR. A district investigator was appointed from an external body. Emails were copied to legal counsel. The foundation chair also wrote a letter of support for Malik, citing his performance at the Olympiad and the depth of evidence. Malik noticed small changes. Whitmore's demeanor in class was colder. He no longer made public comments. He stopped using the AI grading tool for a week, citing technical review. The algorithm dashboard was locked down. Only administrators accessed logs. Students speculated. Some were relieved, some wary. Malik kept studying. He kept documenting. One Tuesday morning, a notice went out to staff in an internal memo, not for students. James Whitmore will be retiring. Effective in 2 weeks. All classes currently taught by Mr. Whitmore will be reassigned pending a full evaluation of teaching methodologies district-wide. No fanfare. No public apology. No formal acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Just retirement. Malik's heart sank. The word felt like a shield. Whitmore was stepping down before consequences could fully land. As Ahmed explained later, retirement means no termination, no official acknowledgement of misconduct. It protects his benefits. It limits liability for the district. But in many cases, the career damage is done regardless. Malik refused to celebrate. A hollow victory wasn't a victory, because retirement didn't mean owning up. It didn't mean change, necessarily. It could mean cover-up. Over the next days, Malik's legal team met with school board members, education authorities, civil rights groups. They presented statistical reports showing discrepancy in AI grading among students by race and transfer status, screenshots of Whitmore's private posts, the removal plan file screenshot, student testimonies, the video clip of Whitmore's mocking in the teacher's lounge. The district produced their own counter-evidence, statements that others had errors too, that students of various backgrounds were flagged, that Whitmore had been commended in his past, that the AI tool had oversight and was trained on past class standards. But Malik's side had more timely documentation, more unambiguous patterns. In public hearing sessions, board members questioned Whitmore under oath. He stumbled when asked about the algorithm's bias settings, denied setting any unfair weight, claimed that any damage was unintentional, but the screenshot from earlier settings that penalized method deviation heavily could not be explained away with plausible deniability. The legal path, slow but precise, moved forward. Malik didn't retreat. He began tutoring other black students who'd been labeled behind in calculus and advanced math. Natalie volunteered. Roberto helped organize small study groups. Tasha helped arrange funding for evening sessions. They met in community centers, libraries, some student homes. Students who were scared to raise hands now solved problems together. Malik taught not only math but how to document, how to demand fairness, how to keep their voice even when whispers tried to drown it out. Even teachers approached him, some quietly apologizing, because they'd seen the evidence, seen the patterns, but were scared of speaking up. One teacher, Mrs. Evans, said, "I saw those AI comments. You weren't crazy. It hurt me to see what you went through." Malik nodded, not needing more validation, but appreciating one more ally. Still, victory tasted bitter. Malik's suspension was still on record. Parents had mixed reactions, some proud, some skeptical. Scholarships were in process, but the uncertainty about whether recommendations would be clean haunted him. His grades were good, but the pressure was constant. Nights were restless. He worried about being seen as trouble. He worried about permanence of the damage. In class, Whitmore's absence left a silence. Substitute teachers tried to follow curriculum, but the weight of what had been happening lingered. Every AI grading report was scrutinized. Other students who suffered similar bias spoke up, but many remained fearful. Malik's resolve grew, even as his exhaustion grew. He realized that change for him meant change for others. He was not done, not by a long shot. In district records, Whitmore's retirement meant his contract was ended. He lost daily contact with students. He was removed from grading assignments. The algorithm oversight panel was formed. The AI tool parameters were publicly audited. New grading transparency policies were proposed. Some board members promised public statements. Some administrators issued apologies. But none referenced racism explicitly. No admission of intentional bias. No financial settlement yet. But structural changes had begun. Algorithm settings would be published. Students flagged by AI would have recourse. Administrators would be trained on bias in algorithmic systems. Malik read the new policies. They were imperfect. They left room for interpretation. But they were a step forward, because they were publicly documented. A week after Whitmore officially stepped down, Malik returned home to find a thick envelope on his doorstep, addressed in Uncle Ray's handwriting. He opened it. Inside, a fold-out sheet of paper lay flat. On the top it said, "To my grandson, there are truths I've never told you." Underneath, handwritten in Ray's careful script, were pages of advanced calculations, notes, and a confession. Ray had once submitted his own paper on this very problem type Malik solved in the Olympiad, under a pseudonym, to a mathematics journal. He believed differently, but the paper was plagiarized by someone else without his consent. The proofs were published under another mathematician's name, and Ray never spoke up, ashamed and unheard. He believed his work insignificant because he was black, poor, someone from South Dallas with no credentials. Malik stared at the confession. The live stream proof, the public validation, they carried weight. But now he held something more personal, something that linked his past with Ray's, his future with unspoken histories. A letter arrives. It's from Uncle Ray. He saw the live stream, and he has something to confess. The envelope felt thicker than Malik expected. He glanced at Tasha, who was folding laundry in the next room. He closed the door softly, sat at his small desk, and peeled open the old manila paper. Uncle Ray's handwriting curled across the top. "To my grandson, there are truths I've never told you." Unfolding the first page, he found neatly ruled lines dense with symbols, integrals, lemmas, margins filled with tiny remarks in italic. It was Ray's prison notebook. The cover was battered, page corners bent, ink crystallized with age. Malik recognized some formulas immediately, those for the Olympiad question he'd just solved. Others were newer, deeper things the world had never seen him publish. Ray's preface was in the notebook. "I was afraid you'd carry what I never dared." It was the sort of line that made Malik's chest tighten. He scanned page after page. Ray had worked on advanced analysis, functional bounds, piecewise continuity, comparison of integral functions, inequalities stronger than most textbook versions. Ray's proofs were elegant and inventive. One lemma in particular struck Malik, an inequality he used in the Olympiad final. Ray's version of it had a more general constant. The exam problem had limited it, but Ray had already proven the general case, with remarks on how it could be extended. Then somewhere in those pages, Ray admitted something. He once submitted a paper under a pseudonym, R. Mathis, to a small peer-reviewed journal. The paper contained several of these proofs. It was accepted. Ray saw the journal printed, felt the pride, but his name was never attached. After it published, another scholar built on those proofs. That scholar's version became more widely cited. Ray's pseudonymous version remained obscure. Ray wrote, "A mistake I made was not claiming the work. I believed it wouldn't matter, because I was invisible. I believed people's attention would always go elsewhere." Malik's hands shook. He read Ray's confession. How, after the pseudonym publication, he discovered sections of his proof were used in courses without credit. How other teachers used those lemmas in lectures, referencing them as common knowledge. Ray's proof of one bound had been paraphrased in archived lecture notes under someone else's name. No one knew Ray was behind it. Ray had thought, if no one hears you, you might as well be quiet. But now, through Malik, those proofs were living. Malik saw the Olympiad question. He saw it mirrored Ray's lemma. Not just similar, but clearly derived from Ray's more general version. Malik felt both pride and sorrow. Pride that Ray's work had seeded something big. Sorrow that Ray had carried this weight for decades, without recognition. Toward the back of the notebook, Malik found a sealed insert. A folded sheet marked manuscript, for full publication, never shared. Its title, Inequalities in Logarithmic Integral Growth, for General Piecewise Function. Ray explained in text, "I stopped pursuing this after the journal asked for revisions. They wanted me to simplify. They wanted me to remove sections. They told me the audience wouldn't understand. I believed them." The manuscript included proofs that extended well beyond what Malik needed for the Olympiad, including alternate boundary cases, variations in constants, and generalizations of the M constant in the inequality. Ray's work showed that the Olympiad's special case was a stripped-down version of what Ray already did decades ago. Malik's mind spun. If he published Ray's full manuscript, with proof extensions, he could reclaim that legacy. But risks loomed: plagiarism claims, academic thresholds, the fear that people would say he was only riding on Ray's shadow. That night, Malik and Tasha sat together at the dining table. The notebook lay open. Tasha read passages aloud. She paused at Ray's confession. "How could he carry this and not fight for credit?" Malik whispered. Tasha put her hand over his. "He was protecting you, maybe, trying to shield you from what he thought you might face." Malik stared at the general case proof. It was more complex but so clearly rigorously argued. He thought, maybe that's why the Olympiad problem was simplified, and also why so many students missed the deeper version. Ray saw farther, and maybe the system was punishing depth in favor of simplicity. Malik felt heavy. The Olympiad win meant something, but Ray's manuscript meant more. It recast his struggle not just as a moment, but as a continuation of a legacy Ray had been building in obscurity. Malik cried quietly. For Ray, for the unacknowledged years, for the fear that silenced brilliance. He considered whether releasing Ray's manuscript would shift the narrative, showing how the final question was not just made for him, it echoed Ray's lifetime work, but also showing how Ray was denied recognition, as many before Ray had. In the following week, Malik worked with his legal and academic mentors. They discussed options: publishing Ray's manuscript in a reputable math journal, with Malik's extension proofs, acknowledging Ray as the author, possibly making Ray listed as co-author, or at least referenced publicly. They drafted letters to editors, prepared corrected versions of proofs, planned peer review. Malik also worried. Would the community accept Ray? Would people say Malik was appropriating? Would Whitmore or others argue that Ray's manuscript was unverified? Would racists use it as fuel to deny both father and son? The more Malik read, the more he saw patterns. Ray's version had elegant techniques that could prevent the method deviation penalty the AI tool used against Malik. Ray's proofs anticipated continuity at boundary, allowed alternative notation. Ray wrote margin notes. Notation is tool, not cage. These lines felt like direct counsel for Malik's struggle. Malik realized this manuscript wasn't just history, it was weapon. A way to argue truth mathematically, to deny manipulation, to show that the Olympiad question was never beyond what Ray had done decades before. Late one night, Malik drafts an email to the journal editor with Ray's manuscript attached, plus Malik's own proof extensions. He hesitates. He imagines the headline, "South Dallas Mathematician's Lost Work Surfaces, Claims by Unknown Author Now Revealed Through Son's Proof." He thinks of who might oppose. The school district, Whitmore's defenders, people benefiting from current narratives. He hits send. Inside his inbox a reply appears. Before morning. Subject: Rise submission received. Urgent editorial decision needed. He opens it. Heart pounding. Only to read, "Dear Malik, thank you for your submission. Our editorial board is interested, but we have just received a competing submission dealing with similar generalized inequalities from a professor at State University. They cover many of your uncle's unpublished boundary cases. We want to know, did Ray share his manuscript with anyone else earlier? Do you have dated drafts? Because priority of discovery matters." Malik stares at the screen. Because he realized this fight is not just about proving problems, it's about being seen, being believed, being first. Malik decides to publish Uncle Ray's full work with his own proof extensions. Malik Carter held the envelope from MIT in trembling hands. The letterhead was embossed, the seal impressed. It was the offer he had dreamt of through every unfair quiz, every whispered accusation, every sleepless night. MIT had admitted him. Full scholarship, a dream realized. But when he read the words aloud to Tasha, his mother, he didn't feel elation. He felt something else: responsibility. Tasha hugged him tightly. "They finally see you," she whispered. But Malik pulled away gently. "Maybe," he said, voice low, "but seeing isn't changing." In the days after the acceptance, everyone assumed he'd pack, board the plane, move to Boston, and march forward. His friends, allies, teachers, all offered congratulations. But one evening at their small kitchen table, Malik looked at his mother over a cup of tea. "I've been thinking," Malik began. "If I go to MIT, I'll be one of few who made it. But what about those who didn't even get the chance to try? What about South Dallas kids who already believe they don't belong? Tasha nodded, wiping her eyes. She had expected this moment. She had imagined him leaving. But she also knew what this fight meant to him. Do you want to build something here? She asked. Malik looked out the window toward the skyline beyond South Dallas. He could imagine it a space for students like him. Smart, ambitious, but held back by unseen rules. Yes, he said finally. I want to build a nonprofit STEM incubator, right here. For math lovers, code writers, experimenters who have been told they're not ready. His voice cracked, but determination glowed in his eyes. Malik spent the following weeks drawing plans. He drafted proposals, curriculum, mentorship programs, computer labs, after-school workshops. He reached out to Natalie, Roberto, Daryl. They volunteered. They found a small building in South Dallas, once a community center, underfunded, but structurally sound. They cleaned it, painted it, opened its doors. They named it the Carter Calculus Collective. Its mission to teach advanced math, coding, problem solving, give students not only answers but ownership of their own methods, and to demand fairness, transparency in grading, respect for difference, confidence even when authority tries to silence. Malik recruited teachers who believed not just in math but in equity. Some were retired, some were young, some people of color. Many had seen the same patterns: smart students overlooked, brilliance punished because it didn't match the narrow mold. Day one in the collective mirrored the first day in Whitmore's class, but everything was inverted. Malik stepped in front of a chalkboard. His first class, 10 students. Black, Latino, girls, boys, all from underrepresented zip codes. Eyes bright, pens poised, hearts hopeful. He wrote the same equation from day one at Langston Hills, the complex expression of signs, logarithms, limits. The one he solved cleanly, that Mr. Whitmore erased. He paused. The students leaned in. This is ours too, Malik said. They worked together. Malik encouraged different methods. If someone approached with self-taught style, he listened. If someone followed textbook, he validated. When someone invented a variant method, he honored it. No red pen judgment. No method deviation penalty. Just collaboration, clarity, courage. Word spread fast. Students who had been failing advanced calculus regained belief. Parents saw their children staying up late studying because they wanted to, not because they feared failure. Natalie organized weekend math circles. Roberto brought in programmers to run workshops. Daryl taught logic puzzles and how algorithms worked, not just for grading, but for real-life systems. So students understood how tools used to silence could be tools to empower. Local community leaders visited. Teachers from Langston Hills quietly came to observe. Some asked to guest lecture. Newspapers wrote profiles. South Dallas Incubator flips the script. Alumni from Ray's old neighborhood donated books, software, notebooks. Malik helped students apply for college, published Ray's manuscript, gave credit where due. Even with success, weight remained. Malik sometimes paused in front of a class where a student's answer didn't match the norm, and he felt the echo of Whitmore's red pen. He wondered, am I giving them autonomy, or am I guiding them with my own scars? Are they being pushed to change themselves so they'll be accepted just like he was? At night, he graded work in the incubator lab, staring at AI-style feedback from his old school laughingly unfair, marking student answers right, but deducting points for method. He deleted those remarks. He wrote personal feedback. This is your reasoning. I see it. It matters. His students praised it. They flourished. One afternoon, the foundation chair who saw him at the Olympiad reached out again, but this time not to offer individual scholarship for the incubator. They offered seed funding, grants, mentorship resources, mentorship from MIT alumni in engineering, computing, educational policy. They wanted to formally partner, help scale the incubator to reach more community. Malik hesitated. Accepting foundation money meant oversight, reports, accountability. Some funders might try to shape curriculum, judging success in test scores rather than in confidence. But he also saw leverage. With support, the incubator could serve dozens, hundreds of students. He accepted, on condition, they would respect the voice of students and the incubator's values, not replacing them with rigid standards. Years later, in a refurbished room lined with whiteboards and posters, Malik stood before 30 students. Some were middle school, some high school. They were different from him in age, dream, gender, but they looked like him in lineage. Struggle, pride. He chalked the sine's logarithms equation, again, copying the same complex expression from his first day in that hostile class. Chalk in hand, he set it on the board. Today we learn together. His students rose to solve it, some using books, some self-taught styles, some innovating. Some wrote clean logarithmic steps, others used graphical intuition, others broke down the limits visually, before moving to algebraic form. Some of them reached boxed correct answers, others pushing toward understanding, errors corrected kindly, discussion encouraged. No erasures by authority, no mocking laughter, only shared discovery. Malik's incubator began to change the narrative around what it meant to be labeled behind. Success wasn't defined by matching someone else's method. It was defined by understanding, by courage, by using one's mind, even when others doubt it. Parents watched their children stand tall. Students who once doubted themselves now taught younger siblings. Teachers in surrounding schools asked him for mentoring on fairness, on diversifying grading criteria. At MIT, he maintained scholarship status. He spent summers teaching in Dallas. He returned home often to manage the incubator. He hosted live-streamed lectures. He published Ray's manuscript, credited Ray openly, included Ray as inspiration in every extension proof. His name and Ray's name appeared in journals, their work discussed in classes beyond Texas. The screen in Malik's commencement speech at the incubator's first 5-year anniversary fades to black, then back into the classroom. The chalkboard where Malik writes the same equation from day one. Only now every student is solving it together. A hush, then the final moment. Malik steps back and points to the students, smiling. Below, the chalkboard shows multiple correct paths, some textbook style, some self-taught, some innovative. The camera pulls back. The faces in the class light up. The chalk dust settles in the air. Because he wasn't just the smart black boy who solved the hardest equation. He was the solution itself. The equation remains the same, but the meaning has transformed from exclusion to shared possibility. If you've ever been silenced for being too smart, too different, or simply too black, you already know Malik's story isn't rare. It's real, it's happening, and it needs to stop. Type yes if you believe brilliance should never be punished. Subscribe if this broke your heart and opened your eyes.